Love is a strange thing, isn't it? It can lift you to the highest skies, where the air is thin and the world feels infinite, or drop you into the deepest oceans, where the pressure is crushing and the light barely reaches. It's a force that defies logic, a storm that rewrites the maps of your heart. And sometimes when you least expect it, love asks you to do the hardest thing of all, to let go. Even when every fiber of your being screams to hold on. Even when your heart feels like it might shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Even when the memories cling to you like shadows, whispering promises of what could have been. Letting go feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, your toes curling over the edge, the wind tugging at your resolve. It's terrifying, isn't it? To release something so precious, so intertwined with your soul, and trust that the fall won't destroy you. But here's the thing about love. It's not just about holding on. It's also about knowing when to open your hands, when to set someone free, even if it means setting yourself adrift. Because love, in its purest form, isn't possessive. It's not a cage. It's the courage to say, I love you enough to want your happiness, even if it's not with me. And maybe, just maybe, in that act of letting go, you'll find a different kind of love, one for yourself. A love that teaches you resilience, that reminds you of your own strength. A love that whispers, you are enough, even when the world feels empty. So yes, love is strange. It's messy and beautiful, painful and transformative. It's the thread that weaves through the tapestry of our lives, sometimes tying knots, sometimes unraveling. But in the end, it's always worth it. Because love, in all its forms, is what makes us human. And even when it asks us to let go, it never truly leaves us. It lingers like the scent of rain after a storm, reminding us that we are alive, that we are capable of feeling deeply, and that we are forever changed by it. This is a story about love. Not the kind that ends with a fairy tale wedding, where the music swells and the crowd cheers as you kiss under a shower of rose petals. Nor the kind that culminates in a dramatic breakup, with slammed doors and tear-streaked faces, the kind that feels like the end of the world. No, this is a story about the quiet love. The kind that doesn't make headlines or inspire ballads. The kind that lives in the spaces between words, in the glances that linger a second too long, in the silence that speaks louder than any confession ever could. This is the kind of love that asks you to make a choice. A choice that doesn't come with a clear right or wrong, but one that demands everything from you. A choice that hurts. Oh, how it hurts, because it requires you to confront the deepest parts of yourself. The parts that are selfish, the parts that are scared, the parts that want to cling to what's familiar, even when it's no longer right. But here's the thing about this kind of love. It's not about holding on. It's not about fighting for something that's already slipping through your fingers. It's about having the courage to say, asterisk, this is not where my story ends. Asterisk, it's about looking at the person you love, or the dream you've held on to for so long, and saying, asterisk, I release you. Asterisk, not because you want to, but because you have to. Because sometimes, love isn't about possession. It's about liberation. And yes, it will hurt. It will feel like a piece of you is being torn away. Like you're standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter in sight. But in that pain, there's also freedom. A strange, bittersweet freedom that comes from knowing you've done the right thing, even when it feels so wrong. It's the freedom of letting go of what no longer serves you, of making space for something new, even if you can't see it yet. This is a story about love that doesn't follow the script. It's messy, it's raw, it's real. It's the kind of love that doesn't promise happily ever after, but instead offers something far more profound: growth. Because when you make that choice, when you choose to let go, you're not just setting someone else free. You're setting yourself free too. Free to heal, to grow, to become the person you were always meant to be. So, this is a story about love. But more than that, it's a story about you. About the choices you make, the pain you endure, and the freedom you find on the other side. And maybe, just maybe, it's a story that will remind you that even when love asks you to do the hardest thing, you are strong enough to do it. And in the end, that strength will be your greatest love story of all. Imagine this. You've loved someone with all your heart. Not just the easy surface-level love, but the kind that runs deep, the kind that has roots tangled in the very core of who you are. You've built dreams together. Dreams of lazy Sunday mornings, of adventures in far-off places, of growing old and still laughing at the same inside jokes. You've shared secrets, the kind that feel too heavy to carry alone, and in return, you've carried theirs. You've believed in a future, a life woven together so tightly that it's hard to imagine one without the other. But then one day he looks at you. And it's not the look you're used to, the one filled with warmth, with promise, with love. No, this look is different. It's hesitant, almost apologetic, and it carries a weight that makes your stomach drop before he even speaks. And then he says it. Asterisk, I've chosen someone else. Asterisk. The words hang in the air, sharp and unyielding, like a knife suspended mid-fall. For a moment, the world stops. The dreams you built together crumble like sandcastles under a wave. The future you imagined evaporates, leaving behind a hollow, aching void. And you're left standing there, your heart pounding in your chest, your mind racing with 1,000 questions, but only one truly matters. What do? Do you fight? Do you claw at the fragments of what you had, desperate to piece them back together? Do you remind him of all the moments that meant something, all the promises that were made, all the love that was real? Do you try to convince him that he's making a mistake, that what you have is worth holding on to, even if it's broken? Or do you beg? Do you fall to your knees, tears streaming down your face, and plead with him to stay? Do you offer to change, to be better, to be whatever he needs you to be, just so he won't walk away? Do you let your pride shatter, your dignity dissolve, all in the hope that it might be enough to make him choose you? Or do you let her go? Do you take a deep breath, steady yourself, and say the words that feel like they might kill you to speak? Do you look him in the eye, even as your heart is breaking, and say, if she's what you want, then I won't stand in your way? Do you swallow your pain, your anger, your fear, and let him walk away, even though every instinct screams to hold on? It's not an easy choice. There's no right answer, no script to follow. But here's the truth. Love isn't about possession. It's not about forcing someone to stay when their heart is already somewhere else. It's about wanting the best for them, even if it means letting them go. Even if it means breaking your own heart in the process. And maybe, just maybe, in that act of letting go, you'll find a strength you didn't know you had. You'll discover that you are more than the love you lost, more than the dreams that didn't come true. You'll realize that while love can break you, it can also rebuild you. Stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. So what do? The choice is yours. But remember this. No matter what you choose, you will survive. You will heal. And one day, you'll look back and realize that this moment, as painful as it was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you learn to love yourself just as fiercely as you loved him. And that, perhaps, is the greatest love story of all. This is the story of a man who had to make that choice. A man who loved deeply, with a heart so full it often felt like it might burst. He loved not just with words, but with actions. Small, quiet gestures that spoke volumes. A cup of coffee made just the way she liked it. A hand to hold during storms, both literal and metaphorical. A shoulder to cry on, a voice to calm the chaos. He loved her in a way that felt eternal, as if their souls had been intertwined long before they ever met. But love, as he would come to learn, is not always enough. Sometimes, even the deepest love cannot bridge the gap between two people who are walking different paths. And so, one day, he found himself standing at a crossroads, faced with a choice that would change everything. A choice that would test the very fabric of who he was. Let me take you through his journey, a journey that began with heartbreak, but would ultimately lead to self-discovery and freedom. It started with a conversation, one that felt like a punch to the gut. She sat across from him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve, and told him the truth. Her heart had wandered. She had found something, or someone, else. The words landed like stones, each one heavier than the last, until he felt buried under the weight of them. He wanted to scream, to argue, to demand an explanation. But instead, he sat there silent, as the reality of her words sank in. In the days that followed, he wrestled with his emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, they came in waves, threatening to pull him under. He replayed every memory, every moment they had shared, searching for clues, for signs he might have missed. He wondered if he could have done something differently, if he could have loved her better, harder, more. But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't about him. It wasn't about something he lacked or a mistake he had made. It was simply about her heart choosing a different path. And so, he made the choice. The hardest choice of his life. He let her go. It wasn't dramatic. There were no grand gestures, no final pleas. Just a quiet acknowledgement that their time together had come to an end. He hugged her one last time, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. And then he stepped back, releasing her with a love so profound it hurt. The days that followed were dark. He felt lost, untethered, as if a part of him had been ripped away. But slowly, something began to shift. He started to rediscover himself, not as half of a couple, but as a whole person. He reconnected with old passions, with friends he had neglected, with dreams he had set aside. He learned to be alone, not in a lonely way, but in a way that felt empowering. He realized that he was enough, just as he was. And then one day, he woke up and realized the pain had dulled. It was still there, a faint ache in his chest, but it no longer consumed him. He could think of her without feeling like the world was ending. He could smile at the memories, grateful for the love they had shared, even if it hadn't lasted forever. This is the story of a man who learned that sometimes, love means stepping aside. It means wanting the best for someone, even if it's not you. It means trusting that the universe has a plan, even when it feels like your heart is breaking. And most of all, it means understanding that letting go doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Strong enough to love deeply, to lose bravely, and to rise again, whole and free. So this is his story. But it's also yours. Because we've all faced choices that test us, that force us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. And if you're standing at that crossroads now, unsure of what to do, remember this. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. And in that letting go, you might just find the freedom you've been searching for all along. They met on a day like any other. The kind of day that doesn't stand out in memory. No dramatic storms, no golden sunsets, just an ordinary Tuesday. She was sunshine, radiant and warm. The kind of person who could light up a room without even trying. And he was the sky, vast and steady, always there, always watching, always in awe of her light. From the moment they met, they were inseparable. Their connection was magnetic, effortless. As if the universe itself had conspired to bring them together. They built a life filled with laughter and shared dreams. They traveled to places they'd only ever talked about, danced in kitchens at midnight, and whispered secrets in the dark. He loved her in a way that felt all-consuming, as if she were the very air he breathed. And for a while, it seemed like they were invincible. Like nothing could ever come between them. But love, as they say, is never simple. It's not a straight path. It's a winding road with twists and turns you can't always see coming. And one day, she sat him down. Her eyes, usually so full of light, were clouded with something he couldn't quite place. She took a deep breath, and then she told him about him. The other man. The one who made her heart race in a way he never could. The words hit him like a freight train. He felt the ground beneath him crack, the world he had built with her crumbling into pieces. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, to fight for what they had. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something that stopped him cold. Honesty. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was being brave, telling him the truth, even though it tore her apart to do it. And in that moment, he realized something profound. Love isn't about possession. It's not about holding on so tightly that you suffocate the very thing you cherish. It's about wanting the best for the person you love, even if it means letting them go, even if it means breaking your own heart in the process. So he made a choice, the hardest choice of his life. He let her go. It wasn't dramatic. There were no grand speeches, no tearful goodbyes, just a quiet understanding that their paths were diverging. He hugged her one last time, holding her close, memorizing the feel of her, the scent of her hair, the way she fit perfectly in his arms. And then he stepped back, releasing her with a love so deep it ached. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. He felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed by waves of anger, sadness, and regret. He questioned everything, their love, his worth, the future he had imagined. But slowly, something began to shift. He started to rediscover himself, not as half of a couple, but as a whole person. He reconnected with old passions, with friends he had neglected, with dreams he had set aside. He learned to be alone, not in a lonely way, but in a way that felt empowering. He realized that he was enough, just as he was. And then one day, he woke up and realized the pain had dulled. It was still there, a faint ache in his chest, but it no longer consumed him. He could think of her without feeling like the world was ending. He could smile at the memories, grateful for the love they had shared, even if it hadn't lasted forever. This is the story of a man who learned that sometimes, love means stepping aside. It means wanting the best for someone, even if it's not you. It means trusting that the universe has a plan, even when it feels like your heart is breaking. And most of all, it means understanding that letting go doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Strong enough to love deeply, to lose bravely, and to rise again, whole and free. So this is his story. But it's also yours. Because we've all faced choices that test us, that force us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. And if you're standing at that crossroads now, unsure of what to do, remember this. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. And in that letting go, you might just find the freedom you've been searching for all along. So, he made the hardest decision of his life. He let her go. Not because he didn't love her. God, he loved her more than he had ever loved anyone or anything. But because he loved her enough to want her happiness. Even if it meant his own heart would shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Even if it meant waking up every morning to a world that felt emptier without her in it. He loved her enough to set her free, even though every fiber of his being screamed to hold on. In the days that followed, he felt like a ship lost at sea. Adrift in an ocean of memories, each wave crashing over him with a force that left him gasping for air. Her laughter echoed in his mind, a sound so vivid it was as if she were still there, sitting beside him. The ghost of her touch lingered on his skin, a phantom warmth that made his chest ache. Her voice, soft and familiar, played on a loop in his thoughts, whispering words that once brought him comfort but now only deepened the void she had left behind. He questioned himself endlessly. Had he made the right choice? Was it weakness to let her go, to step aside without a fight? Or was it the bravest thing he'd ever done? He wrestled with these thoughts, his mind a battlefield of doubt and regret. He replayed their last conversation over and over, searching for clues, for signs that he could have done something differently. But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't about him. It was about her. About her happiness. And as much as it hurt, he knew he had done the right thing. Then, one morning, he woke up and realized something. The pain was still there, but it was different. It wasn't the sharp, suffocating ache of loss that had consumed him in the beginning. It was quieter, softer, like a wound beginning to heal. The edges of his grief had started to blur, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he could breathe without feeling like the weight of the world was crushing him. He started to see the world differently. The sun felt warmer on his skin, the air clearer in his lungs. Color seemed brighter, sounds more vivid, as if the world had been muted for months and was finally coming back to life. He began to rediscover himself, the parts of him that he'd forgotten in the shadow of their love. The hobbies he'd set aside, the friends he'd neglected, the dreams he'd put on hold. Piece by piece, he started to rebuild his life, not as half of a couple, but as a whole person. He learned to be alone, not in a lonely way, but in a way that felt empowering. He found solace in the quiet moments, in the stillness that had once felt so unbearable. He began to appreciate his own company, to find joy in the simple things. A good book, a long walk, the sound of rain against the window. He realized that he was enough, just as he was. That his worth wasn't tied to her, or to anyone else. And then one day, he thought of her, and it didn't hurt the way it used to. He could smile at the memories, grateful for the love they had shared, even if it hadn't lasted forever. He realized that letting her go hadn't been the end of his story. It had been the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where he learned to love himself, to embrace his own strength, and to find freedom in the choices he had made. This is the story of a man who learned that love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting go. It's about wanting the best for someone, even if it means breaking your own heart. And in that act of letting go, he found something he hadn't expected. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of hope. The hope that one day, the pieces of his heart would come back together, stronger and more resilient than before. So if you're standing at that crossroads, unsure of what to do, remember this. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. And in that letting go, you might just find the freedom you've been searching for all along. He took up old hobbies he'd abandoned, dusting off the parts of himself that had been buried under the weight of their relationship. He picked up his guitar, fingers clumsily finding their way back to chords he hadn't played in years. The music was rusty at first, but with time, it began to flow again, filling the silence with melodies that felt like old friends. He reconnected with friends he'd drifted away from, the ones who had patiently waited in the wings while he poured everything into her. They welcomed him back with open arms, their laughter and camaraderie a reminder that he was never truly alone. And then one day, he found himself sitting at his desk, a blank page staring back at him. It had been years since he'd written anything. Stories, poems, even a simple journal entry. Writing had once been his escape, his way of making sense of the world. But somewhere along the way, he'd stopped. Maybe he thought he didn't need it anymore. Maybe he thought she was enough. But now, with a pen in his hand and the emptiness in his chest, he began to write. At first, the words were hesitant, stumbling over each other like a child learning to walk. But soon, they began to flow, pouring out of him in a cathartic rush. He wrote about love, about loss, about the ache of letting go. And as he wrote, he began to understand something profound. Letting her go wasn't just about her happiness. It was about his own. He realized that in holding on to her, he had been holding himself back. He had been living in the shadow of their love, afraid to step into the light on his own. But now, as he rediscovered the things that made him who he was, he began to see that he was more than just half of a couple. He was a whole person, with dreams and passions and a life that was waiting to be lived. And then one day, he saw her again. It was unexpected, a chance encounter on a street he hadn't walked down in months. She was with him, the other man. They were laughing, her hand in his, their faces glowing with a happiness that was undeniable. For a moment he froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He expected the familiar sting of jealousy, the sharp ache of regret. But it didn't come. Instead, he felt something he hadn't anticipated. Peace. He watched them for a moment, not with bitterness, but with a quiet acceptance. She looked happy. Truly, genuinely happy. And for the first time, that didn't hurt him. It didn't break him. Instead, it filled him with a strange sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the love they had shared, for the memories they had made, for the person she had helped him become. He had loved her truly and deeply, and that love had brought him to this moment. A moment where he could smile, wish her well, and walk away without looking back. As he turned and walked in the opposite direction, he felt a lightness in his chest, as if a weight he hadn't even realized he was carrying had finally been lifted. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Because he knew, deep down, that he was going to be okay. That he was already okay. This is the story of a man who learned that love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting go. It's about wanting the best for someone, even if it means breaking your own heart. And in that act of letting go, he found something he hadn't expected. Himself. So if you're standing at that crossroads, unsure of what to do, remember this. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. And in that letting go, you might just find the freedom you've been searching for all along. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean the love you felt suddenly vanishes, like a flame snuffed out by the wind. No, letting go is something far more complex, far more profound. It means you stop holding on to what was never truly yours. It means you loosen your grip on the idea of forever, on the illusion of control, and accept that some things are meant to be temporary. It means you stop trying to force a story that has already reached its end, and instead, you allow yourself to turn the page. And sometimes in that act of release, you find a new kind of strength. A strength that comes from knowing you survived the storm, that you faced the pain head-on and didn't let it destroy you. It's the strength of someone who has been broken but chose to put themselves back together, piece by piece, even when it felt impossible. It's the quiet resilience of a heart that has learned to beat again, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about letting go is what you discover in the aftermath. When the dust settles and the tears dry, you begin to see yourself in a new light. You realize that the love you poured into someone else was never wasted. It was a reflection of your own capacity to love deeply, fiercely, unconditionally. And now, it's time to turn that love inward. To give yourself the same kindness, the same patience, the same devotion that you so freely gave to another. This is where the journey truly begins. It's in the quiet moments of self-discovery, in the small acts of self-care, in the courage to dream new dreams. It's in the way you learn to celebrate your own company, to find joy in the simple pleasures of life, to embrace the person you are becoming. It's in the way you start to see your worth, not as something tied to another person, but as something inherent, something unshakable. Letting go is not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you are the hero of your own story. It's a chapter filled with growth, with healing, with the kind of love that starts within and radiates outward. It's a love that doesn't need to be earned or proven. It simply exists, steady and unwavering, like the sun rising after the darkest night. So if you're standing at the edge of letting go, unsure of what lies ahead, remember this. You are not losing something. You are gaining everything. You are gaining the freedom to be yourself, to love yourself, to live a life that is authentically yours. And in that freedom, you will find a strength you never knew you had, a love that will carry you through anything, and a future that is brighter than you can imagine. Letting go is not the end of love. It's the beginning of a new kind of love. For yourself. Sometimes love means letting go. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Love stories like this one? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. Let's spread the message of love, strength, and self-discovery together.